Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Impact Money Show you are watching on your TVs in Texas and Louisiana, as well as streaming around the world on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and all the rest of them. We have an exciting show lined up today. It is just the world is absolutely insane, of course, as always. So there's always a lot to talk about. The markets are mixed. Ahead of we had all the numbers come out last week. The markets are mixed. We have oil kind of hanging out there high, though, really for my taste, but that's how we predicted it would go. Crypto had a nice move up yesterday. Stocks appear to be a bit tepid. Might be it looks like it should be a nice move up today. Of course, we'll look more into that as the show goes on with the great Matt Dixon as he joins the show. But overall, U.S. dollar is sliding. That should mean that means usually that risk assets move up, and that is kind of across the board what we are seeing. Crypto looks poised for a pretty nice move up. Of course, the geopolitical situation is the big factor here. You know what I mean? What is going to happen? We have war in the Middle East. It looks like no end in sight. I was just even reading something like 14,000 bombs, 14,000 2,000-pound bombs came from the U.S. that have been dropped on primarily a civilian population over there. It's really hard to get your head around. Stuff like that comes back to us. Life is precious, folks. Life is precious, and life is supposed to be respected, and we are supposed to cherish life. We're supposed to cherish life. That's the deal. That's what we're supposed to do. So I hate to see stuff like that. I know probably most of you do as well. That's some pretty hard stuff to swallow. We have Bannon is going to jail today. Big news really of the day. Bannon is going to jail. Do you know why? Why is Bannon going to jail? And I ask that because, of course, I guess maybe I really don't know. I mean, why is Bannon going to jail? If you could let me know, that would be great. I know the Supreme Court just came out with some ruling saying that that some of the J6ers are going to be able to probably get out of jail with, and hopefully even mount a counteroffensive as well. Trump's DC charges more than likely go away for the moment. I mean, we are in unprecedented times. But Bannon's going to jail today. He did a series of different interviews, or not podcasts or TV. I don't know if it's on TV, but shows over the last few days. Very defiant. I think he's going to try to do his show from jail. They have him doing a job in jail, but while he's not doing that job, he says he's going to continue working. Really extraordinary times. So I think I do know why he's going to jail now that I'm talking about it out loud. He ignored a subpoena by Congress. So this is the same thing that Merrick Garland is nothing is happening to him about. So it's very very not good times to for all this stuff to be happening. So I think that's why he is going to jail at the moment, is ignoring a congressional subpoena, which he says was from the advice of counsel. Number one. But if the J6 committee and all that stuff is said to be illegitimate, which is what one of the committees decided last week or the week before, I don't know. It seems crazy. What's crazy to me is that Congress could definitely step in and keep him out of jail, and they're not. And that should just basically tell you everything that you need to know right there. Pretty crazy stuff going on. They want to make sure that the wrong people don't buck them. Because again, Merrick Garland has done the same thing, ignored a congressional subpoena. They're trying to actually now pass something where they would just go arrest him. I think that's a long shot. I doubt that will happen, but we'll see. But I doubt he's ever going to see the inside of a jail cell. So that's what we're dealing with here. But let me know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments. Obviously, on TV it's a little harder, but if you want to head on over to our X or YouTube or anything like that, we're on Networks Manager on X. Networks Manager is where we're broadcasting from, as well on YouTube. We're on Crypto Cake. On LinkedIn, we're on my LinkedIn, Bruce Porter Jr. Instagram is on Modeling Agent, so you can check us out. You can comment on all those places. Le Pen wins. Le Pen is win, and I think it's just like an initial. The way that France does their elections, this is like the initial election. So Le Pen and her party are ahead. Okay, and it's honestly an illusion of choice. Okay, I think it's an illusion of choice. But I mean, I think that about most things. So, but that signifies a major change in how things are going. And it's not over yet. Okay, from what I understand, maybe Matt would even know more about that, being a UK guy. He might have some insight on that. But then is Nigel next? And so I actually was just reading a report a few minutes ago as I was putting together the show, and the Prime Minister Sunak is set to give a speech today, and he is expected to tell everybody to vote Labour, just to make sure that they keep Nigel out of power. So to tell his voters, in other words, don't vote for me, vote for my party, vote for Labour instead. Very interesting. Now, if you remember, Sunak got into power without ever being elected. It was kind of interesting that it stepped down and then just put him in. So Sunak was never elected in the first place. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but that will be extraordinary. We'll be watching that. So a lot going on over there in Europe. Of course, I talked a little bit about how the central bank took over Europe with the euro while I was in France last. I'm not going to play that clip now because we don't have time, but I'll play it maybe at the end of the show. And I talked about how the central bank took over Europe, and I just very briefly, they were able to get all of Europe to answer to them by giving them money, the same way that the central bank took over the U.S. Basically, they said, "Look, we'll pay all your bills. You'll never default on anything. We'll give you all the paper money that you need." And then, of course, once you made that deal, put them in control of the monetary policy, then they're in control. If you control the purse strings, you control. Right, you're in control. That's the way it works. So, in brief, that's how it works. Brazil is trying to censor the entire world. Elon Musk goes to his Twitter yesterday, or his X account yesterday, and says, "If you're not already premium, please go premium. We're having to pay a lot of fines." It might have been his account or his kind of socket account, which is Doggy Doge Designer. Most people think that's his socket account. So that's they're telling him to take stuff down and imposing more restrictions and imposing more fees. More fees is not the right word, but if you don't do this, then more fines. Speculation is swirling if the central banking cartel assassinated Thomas Masse's wife. ... Now, of course, this is the under breath, right? This is the stuff that you're not supposed to talk about. But did they? Is that what happened? Like, nobody really knows right now. And then you start thinking about it, and then you start, well, wait, did they kill JFK? And the central did they? Is that what it is? Is that why they never told us? Everybody thought it was the CIA. I'm sure the CIA was involved, but was it the central banking cartel? And then you start opening that one, you start opening that box, and John F. Kennedy was he had made Apex predecessor register as foreign agents. They since closed, and then they APEC was one of its subsidiaries, and that went on, but same. And now, of course, they're not registered as foreign agents. He had also he was going to start. We were going to start printing the money in the U.S. Using a silver standard. As well, he went out and told everybody that he was going to expose a conspiracy that was to make the entire country, or the entire world, the entire country, slaves. And what are we now? We're debt slaves, right? 34 trillion, 34 trillion in debt. It's an interesting question. And then if, Thomas Masse came out against very strongly against the central banking cartel, the Federal Reserve, as well, outing that APEC had handlers for every representative. And within weeks, he went on Tucker and he exposed that, and within weeks, his wife was dead. So who knows? It is speculation. To be clear, it is It's not total speculation because, of course, we have the connections with JFK, but it is speculation. All right, let's talk more about the markets. We'll bring on the great Matt Dixon. Sir Matt, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So I don't know, you were kind of in the background, but do you have any more insight into those two elections, France and the UK?
I mean, they are swinging to the right, definitely. So obviously, Le Pen is right wing, and as you say, it's not over yet. The UK, I mean, there's a big swing to the right across Europe. Really, you're not just talking about France. I mean, you're talking also Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland. I think Slovakia as well. They're all swinging over to the right. And I'm not quite sure of the full implications of what that will be, but obviously there will be implications on things like climate change and probably especially migration. So migration's a big, big issue. And I think that's what's causing this big swing to the right. People want at least controlled migration. I guess that's probably the same story in America. Yeah. So, and that's, I suppose, where you get a swing to the right, potentially further to the right in America as well. So in the UK, Farage is an independent, but he's quite right wing. He's very sort of anti-immigration, or at least control immigration. And yeah, he's very conservative, right wing, really. So he's picked up a lot of votes across the country. So he's actually grown his following massively across the country, but he's highly unlikely to even get any seats, to win any seats. So the candidates, the thing is, you see, you don't have proportional representation. So what it is, he's got a broad base across the country, but there's no one place that really fully supports him. So he will still be beaten in virtually everywhere that his candidates stand for election. So he won't get any seats in Parliament. It's highly unlikely. So I can't believe that Rishi Sunak would say don't vote, would say vote for Labour, unless he's just trying to cover up for the massive, absolute, catastrophic smashing he's going to get at the election.
Well, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So because the Conservatives are going to get smashed under his leadership, and it's going to be quite embarrassing by the look of it. For the Conservative Party, the magnitude of the beating they're going to get. And so if he were to say this, maybe it just covers the fact that they're getting smashed. I don't know, but I can't believe he would say that. I mean,
it will be extraordinary. I would never seen anything like it before in my life, which, I mean, I feel like I say that every day though now.
It would be disgraceful, and he'd completely fall in everybody's estimation, I imagine, if you were to say vote Labour. I mean, you should be promoting your own policies, not saying it's just, that's not the way politics should work, I don't think.
Yep.
So, yeah, very sad the way things are going, and a lot of things are going.
It's true.
Anyway.
It's true. And then one last question. I don't know if you know more about the French election, but I know she's like kind of ahead. So what do they have, like different like one election and then they're gonna have another one? And do you understand how that works?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think because there's no outright winner, I think they have to go on to another stage. Okay. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, but I think that's the situation. If there's no outright winner, which there isn't, I think they go on and on until effectively they do get an outright winner.
That's what I thought too. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, switch over to finance.
Yes,
I'll share my screen because we've had a great weekend.
we sure
And
have,
that was
right?
pretty much to be expected. It's like a delayed
Yes.
reaction from Friday.
Yeah.
We didn't get the weaker figures well, we did get weaker figures, to be fair. We got weaker figures, but they weren't weaker than expected. So we're expecting a reduction from 2.6 to 2.4 on the PCE.
Yeah.
Let me just jump into the screen there. That one showing DXY. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this was before the weekend. We can see there Thursday into Friday. So we saw a big drop off in the dollar there. So it was a little bit of a delayed reaction. It didn't happen straight away. And I suppose, as I say, the figures came out lower than the previous figures. So PCE, which is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, did drop from 2.6 to 2.4. So it's actually getting very, very close now to that 2% target. And this is the one that the Fed takes notice of. So quite interesting. We've got Fed Chair Greenspan speech tomorrow evening in America. So it'll be interesting just to see if he softens at all in his stance towards interest rates and inflation. So if there's any softening at all, that could give us a real boost in the market. So when we look at the charts, we'll just keep that in the back of our minds that potentially, if he does soften and get any more dovish in his approach, and probably he should be doing, because we are seeing growth beginning to slow. We've got ISM manufacturing tonight actually coming out. That will probably show reasonably stable or perhaps even a slight reduction in manufacturing output. So that and a lot of other signs. We're seeing unemployment ticking up a little bit. We're seeing a lot of signs the economy is beginning to slow a bit, but we are actually also seeing inflation slowing. So the Fed and Chair Powell, the old one. So Powell will potentially have the room to begin to think about maneuvering, at least think about maneuvering on interest rates. So I don't think it's going to happen next time round at the end of July. I doubt it, but they will at least probably signal if things continue to soften in the economy and inflation continues to subside as it has been doing, then they're probably at least going to signal interest rate cut. And if that happens, then that will be really good for risk assets, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the lot, S&P 500, Dow, NASDAQ. It's going to be really good. But the thing is, normally you get a flavor of when this is going to happen before they actually even come out and mention it. So the markets get a sniff of what's happening. So I think we're probably, if they are going to start to get a bit more dovish, we're probably quite close to a bit of a rally in the markets. If you think about what we've been going through, I won't go on too much more about dollar index, but basically, just to clarify this, at the moment, we potentially have 3 waves down. We pushed up in a green candle in the last 4 hours. I'm hoping that subsides back to the downside. So that could potentially be a 4th wave. If it's a 4th wave, it can't cross into territory of this move down here, which took us to dollar index of 105.71. We're 105.63 now. So I'm hoping we get a turn down to give us a 5th wave down from this top here. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If that happens, that would tell us that potentially the trend is turning to the downside for the dollar, and that will be good for risk assets. So I'll be keeping a very close eye on dollar index here tonight with ISM manufacturing, and tomorrow with Fed Chair Powell with his speech. So we'll keep a very close eye because dollar index will have a big impact on what's happening across the rest of the market. So we had a nice little rally on Bitcoin, as you can see from here. And this, again, is perfectly in line with our expectations that we've been talking about at every Impact Money show for the past quite some time now, that within a long-term blue parallel channel here, the price of Bitcoin dipped to touch the bottom of that channel precisely, and then price moved higher. So that was really good potential place from a risk reward perspective. This channel is long-term support. We could even, I'll just scroll out a bit. I mean, we've done it before, but you can see, just go here. You can see that it's contained the price for quite some time now, for a whole year, really. We're talking about from June, in fact, before that, we're talking about from April 2023. So more than a year now have been contained, prices contained within a parallel blue channel here. And you can see the price touched here, the price touched here and here. We just dropped the parallel down to here, and the price touched on this parallel here, and touched precisely and started to move to the upside. So that's a good indication that potentially Bitcoin has now finished this correction, which is a sideways choppy correction. That means it's corrective. That means the impulsive direction is still to the upside for the time being. And as we said on Friday on Impact Money, that potentially we're looking at maybe a target of around 90,000 next for Bitcoin before we get the next major resistance. So if we do start to see softening of this monetary policy, potential lowering of interest rates, that is going to give, pretty certain that will give cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all the other risk assets a really good boost. And that's, it's borne out by the chart with this sideways movement touching the channel and pushing higher. So we'll just touch on the shorter time frame just to see that in more detail. So basically, we do need to see more continued upside really to be sure about this. I mean, potentially this could still be an ABC and we could drop down lower. So from a wave perspective, I would like to see some more upward movement, and that's what I'm hoping that the ISM, but in particular Fed Chairs Powell, his speech tomorrow, I'm hoping it's a bit dovish and it'll give us a push up. But in general, although we had the delayed reaction a little bit from PCE on Friday, it did actually react exactly as we expected. And we said there's likely to be a boost in the market following those PCE figures, which at least did reduce. And so we've seen that now across the board. These are the figures for today. So most of the assets are in green. We've got dollar index, you'd expect dollars weaken. But most of the crypto assets, most of them are in green. BNB, we're still expecting some more upside probably from BNB, but that's the only one. It's almost flat, down 0.1%, and Litecoin. But Litecoin's had a good pump of recent because we were down at 70 on Friday, I think it was. It touched 75 this morning. It's still 74.89. So across the board, the assets are looking reasonably healthy. And the S&P 500, just look on that. That looks extremely corrective at the moment. We may have just a touch lower to complete this correction, but I think we're going to push once again to new all-time highs coming for S&P 500. So this does look corrective. A down, B up, working on C down, and then we'll probably push to new all-time highs. So that's looking really good. And it does tell me that the likelihood is that we're going to see some, as I say, some dovish statement out of Fed Chair Powell, and maybe slightly weaker ISM manufacturing. So just focusing again on Bitcoin. So the target is much, much higher. It does look as though potentially, I said it could be ABC. And the big problem with Elliott Wave is ABC is actually can be identical to 1, 2, 3. Because ABC can be 5, 3, 5. And we can very clearly see this wave down is in 3 waves, A, B, C. That's very, very clear. And I think we've also got 5 waves up here, 3 down, and this is working on 5 waves to the upside. So it can still be ABC. So we could drop lower, but just the weight of information at the moment is that we're looking as though we're going to, that we've actually bottomed out here on this parallel channel, and we're going to push higher. XRP, just jumping around a few here. Even XRP is basically looks as though we're going to get a push to the upside. And I've actually got a target quite a bit higher. It's been that asset that's been lagging of late, and it has been very corrective. If I just scroll out a little bit here, you can see it's been very, very, we've had this push up in 3 waves, a corrective push down. I think we're going to get a bit of a push up. My first target, if XRP does begin to take off, my next target will be 60 cents for XRP. So quite a long way to go. We're at 48 cents right now. So 48 to 60, we're talking.
Nice move. Yeah, 20%.
25%.
Yeah, 25%. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be, really, really nice move. So if XRP, mind you, XRP, when it does move, we can see from these candles here, when it moves, it can move really, really rapidly. Just one candle here took it from 52 cents all the way down to 45 cents. So 7-cent move in one candle. That's a 1 4-hour candle. So you can see it can be extremely aggressive movement, highly volatile asset, but potentially really good. Solana is one I've been keeping a very close eye on because, again, Solana's a little bit, from a chart pattern, looks a little bit like Bitcoin with a correction from this top of this wave 3 in blue. We appear to have had an A, a B, and a C, and it's still not 100% certain. A bit like Bitcoin when I said there's not absolute certainty that we've not finished the move down. But even if it does move down, it's still likely to be limited because this is a corrective move most likely, and we should get a good push to the upside reasonably soon. So I favor the bullish side on Solana here. We've had a really, really nice move up today. In fact, over the weekend, I watched the price drop to 137, and right now we're 147. So it's risen $10 over the weekend and early this morning. So, and you can see that with these green candles here, and we had the green candles here. That's actually quite bullish. It's quite impulsive, really. And I've counted it as basically from this bottom movement here in the blues here, I'll get wave 1 up, 2 down, 3 up, 4 down, 5 up. And the wave 2 and 4 that shows alternation in every respect that we would hope and expect for. So it validates the Elliott wave count here as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with wave 4 not overlapping wave 1, etc. The move down from there looks very, very corrective, and I've got it labeled as basically a WXY, which is a double 3 correction. So corrective, choppy kind of corrective movement to the downside here. That may be an A wave, B and C to the downside, and now we look as though we're moving impulsively to the upside. So a little bit of a correction going on right now, but I still hope we move higher. But there's a bit of resistance above. That was from a previous swing high here. There's also this top of this potential wave 1 here. All lines up at about 151, 151.40, somewhere around there. So we actually need to break that level to give us reasonable confidence that we're going to push quite a bit higher. At the moment, I've got reasonable confidence, but it will depend on what Fed chair has to say tomorrow in particular, and perhaps ISM manufacturing as well today. But overall, it's looking as though potentially bullish. And because we had 5 waves up here, 3 waves down here, I would actually expect us to have at least a further 5 waves up. And as a minimum, we can measure that. So I measure the magnitude of that 5 waves from there, and I just transpose it to currently the bottom of that wave there. And that would give us a minimum of 166. Now that is a bare minimum. I actually expect if this is a correction, if this instead of being 1, 2, 3 was just A, B, C, and as I said, they can potentially be, you know, you can't tell the difference at this stage. You can tell the difference later, you have to monitor them. But for the time being, the upward potential could be limited as an ABC, where you'd expect then the C wave would move to $166 on Solana. So any way you look at it, from the current 146 to 166 would be likely a $20 higher potential. So $20 is, I don't know what it is, 16% or somewhere on there probably. So again, really good potential upside, similar to the sort of magnitude upside we were looking at with XRP. So again, I like to see this sort of confirmation across different assets, that you're looking generally that they're going to likely move in the same direction, usually the same sort of percentage wise, although obviously in crypto you can get some differences in the percentage moves. But that's kind of confirming all the pieces of the jigsaw are fitting together to give a similar sort of picture. So I'm quite happy with that. And we'll look at Ethereum. Again, it's very, very similar to Bitcoin, really. You can see it's potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's no overlap there, 5. So potentially we've had a 5 up, that's wave 1, wave 2 down, and pushing up beginning of wave 3. So this could be wave 1 of wave 3, and then we'll push up much higher. So I'm actually also quite bullish Ethereum as well, once again fitting into the picture. Gold is getting a nice bit of a push up today again, but looking slightly longer term on gold. I'm still waiting for that potential bit more of a push down on gold, because I've said we're in the midst of a correction, but it's corrective whichever way you look at it at the moment. It's corrective down, it's also corrective up. So that's very, very typical really of just an overall corrective movement following this big impulsive move we've had to the upside here. That's impulsive upside movement, telling you the direction of the trend is definitely to the upside. And that's why I got this arrow. I'm expecting that trend to continue to the upside fairly soon. So that will be bullish gold and precious metals. And at the moment, all this is choppy corrective. So it can continue choppy corrective for some time. And as I say, I would expect probably a C wave to come, probably below the bottom of this A wave. But it's not much. So maybe a bit more choppiness still to come. But following that, I'm expecting new all-time highs on gold. So that would probably tell us that maybe inflation is due to subside a little bit, because gold is that traditional hedge against inflation. So potentially, well, actually, that would tell us that potentially inflation might be picking up a little bit further down. So mixed picture, really, and that's probably why we've got this choppy movement. It's actually pretty much undecided, because it's not really going anywhere. It's not going up or down at the moment. So perhaps that reflects a bit of the indecision about interest rates at the moment and inflation. People are still, inflation's a little bit too high, but it's not too bad. Interest rates are definitely a bit too high, I think, for the economy, but the economy is actually still performing reasonably well. So you can see a lot of indecision there, a lot of conflicting evidence, which is why we're getting this kind of corrective movement. And the same with all of those assets that we looked at. Bitcoin's in an overall correction, Ethereum in correction, Litecoin in XRP in correction, Solana in correction. They're all pretty well in corrective mode. And that's really just waiting for some clarity from the markets. So let's hope Fed Chair Powell gives us some of that clarity tomorrow. Even oil is, you can see it's actually in some kind of, looks like corrective mode still, pretty much sideways. There's no particular strong direction there. We did have some hidden bearish divergence telling us prices likely to come down a bit lower with oil. So once again, there's no major, let's get rid of that. There's no major.
Who do you want to call?
Nobody.
Not at the moment.
Yeah. So
yeah, oil, it's just kind of hanging there. It would be nice if it came down. I'll tell you, the price of gas here in the U.S. has gone up a lot in the past 10 days.
It's frustrating, isn't it? Because we're seeing oil prices stagnant.
Yeah.
Pretty stagnant. We're actually seeing price at the pumps going up. Well, certainly in the UK, I think they've been going up. And they just, as you say, they look for any excuse to raise prices. But when oil price does subside, they're actually very, very slow. They drag their feet on reducing prices. So it's the consumer that pays at the end of the day, which is not too pleasant. So the couple that we tend to look at, so Bonk is one that we're always talking about as among the meme coins. It's no longer fully a meme, but yeah, that's performed reasonably well, almost 5%. And the other one, I can't see it here. There it is. Book of Memes is actually down a touch. It's had a lot of profit recently, Book of Memes, and it moved up in line with our expectations. It appears to be that we're in the midst of a bit of a correction right now, but I do think there's plenty more upside still to come with Book of Memes. There's no divergence there as far as I can see. Let's just see. Actually, there is some divergence. That was telling us that this downside is to come. So that's quite interesting. Just focus on that for a moment, just to show you the sort of things I look for. So if you look from this price peak to this price peak here, you can see a slight downward slope. You ignore the wicks of the candles, just go for the solid bodies there. And if you look for the corresponding RSI, so you line it up exactly, it's from there to there. So you can see we've got a downward slope in the price peaks, and we've got an upward slope in RSI peaks. And what this one is telling you is that basically it was looking at it's called hidden bearish divergence. And just look at it, absolutely on the button there, price started to decline when we got that hidden bearish divergence. So it's actually a really powerful indicator. It's probably got the highest success rate of any of the individual indicators that I look at across the board. And it's actually known by many people as a leading indicator. And I don't think that's strictly true because it still relies on historical prices. But it is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most powerful indicators that there is on its own. And when you combine it with some other things, like, for example, candle formations, it becomes very, very accurate as a predictive indicator. And as I say, you can see from here, Book of Memes, it's a volatile asset, but yet it was still indicated perfectly. The actual on the button, we had overbought RSI, and we've got one indicator saying overbought RSI, another indicator saying hidden bearish divergence, another indicator if you go from the first red candle down and look at the candle formation there, and actually the wicks above also were indications. So there's multiple indications telling you price was going to decline, precisely what it did. Right now, at the moment, we don't have any particular divergence in place. And so those signals have disappeared. So there's no bias right now, but right here on this, this very point here, I'll just put the circle around it just to show exactly where I'm looking at. So right there were multiple indications that price was going to fall, and that's precisely what happened. So once you can master some of these indications, you can get the probabilities so much in your favor that over the long term, with proper risk reward, you can make real money out of these markets. Whichever assets you look at, this is Book of Memes, which is a brand new asset, really. It's very, very new. It was a meme coin, but it does have some use case now. So that's a great asset. But you can look at this on so many different assets, and it's very, very predictive and helpful. So just checking on time-wise, I guess we're running out of time again. But I just want to touch very briefly on one final thing, if I've got a moment. One that I love to look at, and I actually traded this, I made a lot of money back in 2008, was the Australian dollar against the yen. And it's actually called a risk pair. So the Australian dollar has high interest rates, Japanese yen has low interest rates. There's basically people invest in the Australian dollar when markets are going up, and they actually pile money back into the yen when markets are coming down. So when Australian yen is going higher, it's generally good for risk assets, and that includes Bitcoin, crypto. Even though this is just a currency pair, even though it's a FX currency pair, it has massive correlations across to crypto assets. Same as pound dollar has similar correlations as well. But what we're seeing here is actually impulsive movement to the upside, which looks as though it's set to continue. You can see here, basically, even looking at this fractal here, looking at the blue, we've got 1, 2, 3, maybe some wave 4 somewhere around here, then a further 5th wave. So basically, the impulsive direction is very clearly to the upside on Australian yen. It looks as though that's going to continue. And so that would tell me that you translate that to Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto assets, the likelihood is that we're going to continue to the upside. So I love looking at correlations, especially when you get tight correlations across very different assets. It's another great confirmation signal for me that I'm on the right track and that the jigsaw pieces are fitting together to give me the overall picture. So I just thought I'd touch on that to finish today.
Nice.
Hope that's been helpful. Basically, I think the markets are looking positive, but let's just keep an eye on what Fed Chair Powell has to say tomorrow in particular, and ISM figures tonight. So thanks for listening. Hope that was useful.
Awesome, Matt. Yeah, absolutely. It is always a pleasure to have you on, and the insight is bar none. So I know a lot of people are starting to look at it every day as they put in their trades. So
yeah, great. Yeah, love to be of help. So thank you. Look forward to catching up tomorrow. All the best for everybody. Yes. Catch up soon.
So it is pretty interesting. Now we have, of course, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He's going to give his speech. He's either going to come out dovish or hawkish. A lot of it's a very political. They always try to say it's not political position or whatnot, but it is very political, of course, to be in charge of the money. And it's interesting because, of course, the debate performance by Biden was, I think, lackluster, right? At best, maybe. At worst, he appeared to be completely incapable of running a company, let alone a country. But if, I've said kind of since the beginning of this whole cycle, even like a year ago, that I felt like they were going to let Trump win. And and they were just going to make sure he wasn't able to do anything. And I think that if the Fed chair comes out and he's not dovish, then that is a signal that they've just basically decided that they're not really even pushing to win this election. They are just moving to make sure that Trump is not able to do much. It will be very interesting as well, and it was great to get Matt's insight on on what's going on in the UK, because if Sunak does come out and tell everyone to vote Labour, I mean, that is something that I've never seen before. We're seeing a lot of things like that lately, things that we've never seen before, right? And that would seriously be something like that I've never seen before, and that'll be remarkable. So I have to think that that's a faulty report. It did come from a somewhat reliable source. It also could be being talked about, but the fact that it actually, gets to be, gets to turn into reality, that's pretty far-fetched. I mean, it is hard to believe that would happen. It is very hard for me to see, but I guess we are going to find out. We're going to find out pretty soon. That's supposed to happen today. So eyes are on there. Matt also gave us a little bit of insight into the election there in France. Le Pen is in the lead. Her and her party are in the lead, but I guess it's not definitive. And so from our, we're not French, but from our layman terms, that means it's going to go back and they're going to vote again and see where it goes from there. There were some riots last night. Of course, there has been, I think, obviously, since the central bank has taken over Europe, which I'm gonna play that clip in just a second. I talked about how it happened, but since the central bank has taken over Europe, of course, what the central bank obviously likes to do is have migration. One of the reasons for that is they create bonds for the newcomers that come in, and then they trade those bonds. So it's another way that they insert liquidity into the market, and then they trade those bonds. So that's one of the reasons why they like it. It's more money. So what they've done is opened up the West, Europe, and the U.S. Of course, we've seen tens of millions of people. It's hard to get really good numbers on it, but tens of millions seems to be the figure that is most thought to be true here in the U.S. over just the last few years. Really, it's an unbelievable amount. It's an unbelievable amount of people. It has driven up the cost of everything. One, through the U.S. is paying for all of these people here. So the central bank is printing the money. That is diluting the money supply. And two, of course, you have so many more people here. So the cost of housing has skyrocketed. It's unbelievable, really. Had the rental apartments and everything like that has gone up extraordinarily high. So certainly, and actually, migration was one of the ways that Donald Trump got elected in 2016. That was one of his main one of the main things that he campaigned on. So migration continuing to be a very strong factor in elections. Now, I did a couple of things here, but I did put up a video. This was from France, but I'm going to play it because it's a short video, and I talk about how the central bank took over Europe without firing a shot. And without firing a shot, it's relative. I'm sure, knowing what we know now, there was probably some shots fired. Who knows? But anyway, I talked about it. This was in Paris during Paris Blockchain Week, which is about a month or two ago. But I gave a pretty good rundown. Let's take a look at that. So I'm back in Paris, here to cover Paris Blockchain Week. Very important event here. Everybody pretty much is going to be here. I am at the museum, the Louvre Museum, or Museum des Louvre, as they call it here in France. One of the things I've been talking about over all these years that we have been friends and I've been broadcasting is the monetary revolution and how important it is. What I wanted to touch on is, of course, I'll cover a lot of things over the next few days. I'll talk to a lot of people and bring you a lot of very interesting projects and technology and everything else. But the underlying message that I always have is the monetary revolution. And it's very interesting. And one of the ways that I understand really so much about the monetary revolution is what I saw happen in Europe. So I was lucky enough to start traveling a few decades ago before the euro was enacted. Before they started doing the euro, I was traveling around Europe, very, very cheap, very wonderful, still very beautiful. I mean, it's unbelievable here. You can just see behind me. It's just absolutely unbelievable. But the central banking cartel was able to conquer all of Europe without firing a shot. Now, how did they do that? How did they pull that off? It was very simple. And understanding this and seeing it happen is really important. It's something I want you guys to understand as well. I know many of you probably do. They did it with the currency. It was very simple. So they said, come on to our currency. Come on to our currency. We'll give you free money. We'll finance the things that you want to finance. Is really the same way as well. The U.S. got on the Federal Reserve System. We were having issues there, and the central bank said, no problem. We'll bail you out. We'll give you all the money that you need. Okay. And then in the dark of night, they passed the Federal Reserve Act, which now we have a privately held central bank. But back to Europe and what happened here and what I witnessed happened here. It was the slow boil like we experience all over the world, right? These people operate in decades and centuries. It's very interesting, really, how many decades and whatnot that it takes sometimes. I guess, though, I was fairly quick. But they started, okay, we'll give you free money. We will finance what you want. Just come on to the euro. Come on to the euro system. And this euro, of course, is paper money, right? They can print whatever they want of it. And remember, the central bank doesn't produce anything other than paper money. I mean, obviously, they make the monetary policy, interest rates, stuff like this. There's some market making that goes on there. But overall, it's not like they're producing anything really that makes money. It's like the government. The government really doesn't make money. They're not good at making money. So when the central bank says that they're going to pay for stuff, all they're doing is diluting you in order to pay for it. So they'll print up more money. They'll pay for whatever you want. They'll pay for their enormous salaries, as well as everything else that they do. They'll pay for all types of wars and government spending and everything like that. But all they're doing is taking it from you. There's no real value there. And then once that they have the people on the dole, they're able to then put people in power and, of course, influence policy, right? So now you have a situation where everybody's beholden to the central bank. You have pretty much all of Europe on this euro system, and now they have a new government. And what is that new government? Of course, they have a parliament and they have blah, 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 and everything else, but the new government is the central bank. That's who is in charge, and that was how they were able to take over the entirety of Europe, and they did it by stealing the people's money slowly. They stole it slowly, so it wasn't so obvious for everybody. And at first it was so nice, and they had, this and that and the other. But now you go to Europe, it's much more expensive. And they're doing the same thing that we do. They just print up more and more money. And when they print up more and more money, that, of course, dilutes your holdings and makes you worth less. And that's the way it works. It's the biggest scam in the world. They've done it very successfully over almost all of these countries. Russia still doesn't use a central bank. And as well, we have Syria that doesn't use a central bank. Gaddafi tried it. They killed him. But yeah, pretty interesting. And that's how Europe fell without a shot. There is a central government, obviously, now in Europe. You have the European Union. And they are in charge. They're in charge of all of these countries. And the central bank, the European Central Bank, is in charge of them. And that is the same central banking cartels that runs the country in the United States and Brazil and all the other countries of the world. It was a big scam. We have to stop it. We can stop it. It's not going to be easy. But we'll talk about it more on the show tomorrow, on the Impact Money Show. We're going to bring you a lot of great interviews. We're super excited about it. Here to be at Paris Blockchain Week. Back in Paris, beautiful Paris. I mean, absolutely is just unbelievable. Beautiful Paris, beautiful Paris. And I will say that if we are going to make a stand, Europe might even be a better spot to do it. I know it sounds funny from over here because we look over there and we see some crazy videos and this and that and the other. But actually, the truth is that if you want to say things are worse, they could be worse. I would say here the central bank. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly the system. I know each country kind of had their own central banking system. I don't know if the cartel exactly was in charge of all of them before they took over with the euro, but certainly the U.S. has had the central banking cartel in control since 1913. Okay, and so they've been pushing for our borders to be open very strongly, especially since after World War II. And we had a lot more of these, the first wave of these newcomers come in, and then they really, it's really what they like to do. They like the migration. They like to pull them in here, and it's a money thing. It's all about the money. And, I talk about it a bit, especially over the last little bit, because Elon has brought into focus the population collapse that we're facing, and the central banking cartel's monetary policy, the Federal Reserve, and the European Central Bank. This is directly responsible for the population collapse because people don't think they have enough money to have kids. It used to be, 50, 60 years ago that you could get out of high school, you could get married, you could get a house, you could have 5 or 6 kids, and you could support them. And now, you have people with, graduate's degrees who are thinking they don't have enough money to have kids. The education is completely out of control. I can tell you, as my kids get older, the cost of everything, absolutely crazy. The cost of everything. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, thanks, man. Matt Faraj is, he was talking to me as I was doing this. Great info. The European Central Bank takeover. So true. Your video is great. Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. It's interesting. That's the life experiences, and he was talking about my video that I just played there. It's the life experiences that are why that's where a lot of the wisdom comes from, right? I mean, you can't buy wisdom. If I wasn't over in Europe and experienced Europe before the EU and then after the EU and watched it all happen, then I wouldn't have such insight, right? But I was there. And that's another reason why too, even though I'm as easy as the next guy, but I don't think that we should be, and I'm against really the legalization of different different drugs, even like pot or marijuana, because I saw what that did to Europe. And so what they did was they really they not only, so the central bank came in, and then they really as well they lowered the threshold. They basically decriminalized pot or marijuana, and then everybody, and I'm as easy as the next guy, guys. Okay, but it doesn't have to be legalized. It doesn't have to be promoted. But stoned people are very easy to control. It's very easy to control a population when they're stoned. Very easy. Very easy. So what do you do if you want total control? If you don't want people to realize that they're the frog in the slow boil, what do? Well, you make sure that stuff's easy to get. Stoned population is very easy to control. And then if you take it a bit further, if you get into the harder drugs, where people are really, and obviously marijuana is addictive somewhat. Maybe you don't have like the pain and cravings like you might have with some of the harder drugs, but certainly you get used to that. Not having to deal with things that escape. Okay, that escape is addictive. But when you get into the harder drugs, they'll do whatever, right? So that's what you want. You want people that are totally controllable. And I think that the thing that really we need to think about as Americans, as Christians, we need to think about. And I know I have different religions as well that watch this, and I'm speaking to you too. So as Americans, as good people, we need to really push what's right, and we need to be frank, and we need to be honest with everybody and ourselves. And it's time to speak out. It is really time to speak out. If you take they're not able to kill all of us or put us all in jail. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you take a guy like Thomas Masse, and I don't know if his wife was assassinated by the central banking cartel. I don't know, obviously, speculation. But a lot of people are speculating about it. I am not the only one, by far. He came out. I mean, he came out very strongly against the central banking cartel, and literally, like, less than a month later, his wife was dead. His wife is dead. Now they're not releasing the cause of death and all these things yet. Maybe they don't know, but even once they do, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they can stop. They can kill people. So I mean, we'll probably never know. We'll probably never know really what happened. But this is pretty interesting. So he comes out with this. I'm going to go ahead and share this, as a matter of fact, because this is so important, guys. This is really important, and this is stuff that we need to talk about and get our head around.
Everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
That's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them.
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that. Everybody but me.
And then, like, literally a few weeks later, his wife has passed away. That is absolutely crazy, guys. Yeah. So like I said, it is speculation. I'm not the only one speculating about it. What do you think? I hope he keeps fighting. He also came out with legislation and the Fed. He also came out with speculation with legislation, rather. Here he is. I just introduced End the Fed, the Federal Reserve. And I mean, to take it out of the box for everybody, I mean, the Federal Reserve, I mean, they're like all Israelis, okay? I mean, I guess you guys know that, right? I mean, you got to know that, right? I mean, you know, right? Okay. And AIPAC is the Jewish whatever lobbying deal. I mean, I try to keep things pretty easy here, but those are the facts. I mean, if you don't know it, you need to know it. So the Federal Reserve, I just introduced End the Fed, titled Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act, HR 8421. The Americans would be better off if the Federal Reserve did not exist. The Fed devalues your currency by monetizing the debt and causing inflation. And so this was May 16th. So less than a month and a half later, his wife is dead. Anyway, God bless him. Pray for Thomas Masse. I hope he keeps fighting. That has got to be some hard stuff to go through. But then once you start to take that out of the box, then you start wondering, well, like I said a little earlier, is that who was behind the assassination of JFK? And yeah, there was some pretty interesting things actually that came out. I guess I'm not going to talk about them right now because I don't have all the facts lined up for myself, but I will maybe tomorrow or on another show. I'll talk about it. Yeah. So anyway, we have a great week. Of course, we have the 4th of July week coming up. A lot of fun and interesting things. Also have a lot of great interviews that we're going to bring you this week. It's always a pleasure, guys. I hope that you're doing well. See you in a few hours and all that good stuff. Boom, 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 boom. Here's my thing. And I am out of here.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.